Hey class, this is Mr. Lee. Today is Wednesday, September 9th, 2015, and this is the video lesson for today. As you guys might notice, me and Miss Flores are away right now, and you guys have a sub. You're either watching this through YouTube, or you're watching this through the actual video played by the sub. If the sub has to write down your name, you guys will receive a lunch detention for next week. Here we go. Here's the lay of the land. Students' objective. Students will enhance their ratio and fraction skills with cubes, adding, and subtracting. Our three key words are algebraic rule, table, and graph. And here's the story right now. I need you guys to write down these three words. Algebraic rule, which I am going to highlight right here, table, and graph. These three words will be written on the left-hand side. Whatever I write down, I need you guys to write down. So here's the instructions. We're going to write down an algebraic rule, make a table, and graph for the following situation. To make orange paint, you need to mix 1 part red with 2 parts yellow. First things first, we're going to create a table. And our table is going to look like this. I call this a T-chart because we're going to draw a cross. So right now on your page, I'm going to have this little T-chart right here. And the two things that I'm comparing in the story are 1 part red with 2 parts yellow. So what I'm going to have is this. On the left-hand side, I'm going to write down R for red. And then on the right-hand side, I'm going to have Y for yellow. So my chart is going to have these first two numbers in it. In the story, I have 1 part red. So I'm going to put up 1 for R. How many yellows do I have? Well, I have 2. Now, just like yesterday and all the other chapters, I'm going to ask myself, how does 1 turn into 2? Well, I know my scale factor. It's going to be times 2. So if I have 2 parts red and I multiply it by 2, how many yellow am I going to get? Well, I'm going to get 4. Let's go over to one more number, and that number is going to be 3. So it's going to be 3 right here. I'm going to multiply it by 2. And finally, that's going to get me 6. So here's the table. Our next part is going to be the algebraic rule. Alright, so here's what we're going to do. My algebraic rule is pretty much a fancy way of me writing down my pattern. Above R, can you guys write down this? I want you to write down in, and that stands for input. And we're going to have out above the Y. That's going to get me my output. So how do I get out the number 2? For me to get the number 2 right here, I multiply R by 2. So here's what I can write. I can write down this. I can have my output, my out equals 2 ins. Because I got any number, 1, 2, or 3, and I always multiply by 2. Because this is algebraic, we're going to use our variables. What was the letter for my output? Well, that was Y. So I can write down Y equals, I still write my 2 because the 2 is the scale factor. So instead of in, what was the letter by the N? It's going to be R. So Y equals 2R. So now I've got my table. I've got my algebraic rule. The last part is going to be graph. I understand you guys don't have that much room on your Bellwork paper, and that's going to be okay. It's going to be a really small graph. So all I need you guys to do is just sketch. Not precisely draw, but sketch out what I'm going to draw. So here's what we're going to do. Wherever you have room, it might be in another box or another part of your paper, but I need you guys to draw this grid. We have our output, which is the up and down line, or y-axis, and we have this left and right line, which is called our input, or x-axis. I'm going to number this from 0, 1, 2, and 3. And again, it's not exact, but that's just how I have it. And the other one, I'm going to count by 2s. So 2, 4, and 6. So here's what I'm doing right here. Next to my table, I have these addresses. I'm just rewriting anything in my table. I have 1, comma, 2. All I did was I got the red number, which is 1, and I got the yellow number, which was 2. The next coordinate that I have is 2, comma, 4. And all I did again was I got the 2 from the red from my table, and I got the green ink, this 4 right here. I put them right there. The last address of the last coordinate is going to be free, and it's going to be comma 6. So now that I have these addresses right here, which I got from this table, what I'm going to do next is I'm going to make my points. So I'm going to put this here in black ink. My first one is 1 and 2. So I go right to the 1, which is red, and I go up to the 2, which is in green. And I put my first dot there. My next point is 2 and 4. So I go right to the red 2 and up to the green 4. And lastly, I have 3, which is in red, and 6, which is in green. And as you guys notice, I have this line. And I'll connect the dots to form the line. What this line tells me is my pattern. Any dot that goes onto this line falls into the pattern of being multiplied by 2. We could do an easy number and say 4 and 8 or 5 and 10. But we can keep on making predictions by looking at this line. I'm going to have the sub pause it right here. And if you need time to write it down, the video is going to be paused right here. And you can write it down. Alright, welcome back. The next part of class is going to be this. The next part that we're going to do is simplifying ratio word problems. At each table, there should be worksheets. The worksheets should have 4 story problems on them on one side and a bunch of fraction problems on the other side. Right now, I need you guys to find the page that has this story on it. And we're going to do it cube style. So whatever I circle, you'll circle. Whatever I underline, you underline. Whatever I box in, you box. So on and so forth. The questions are on the left-hand side, and where it says workspace, you'll write down your answer and whatever you evaluate. So here we go. On the upper portion, please write down your name. And where it says score, can you please write down your period and the date? Today's date is Wednesday, September 9th, 2015. Here we go with problem number 1. Number 1 says this. In an animal sanctuary, there are 48 deer and 64 monkeys. Right now, I see 2 things that we need to highlight. 48 deer and 64 monkeys. Find the ratio, which is a number or math verb that I need you guys to box in. Find the ratio of deer to monkey. And I need you guys to underline the question. So again, we're doing cubes. And the yellow part is what we circle. We circle any numbers that we need. If you guys notice, I also highlighted or circled the labels. So it's not just 48, but 48 deer. And it's not just 64, it's 64 monkeys. We also underlined the question, which is find the ratio of deer to monkeys. The last thing that we need to do is box in any math verbs or action words. The word that you have to box in here is screen, which is ratio. Next up is our workspace. I need you guys to write down the 3 different ways that we can write ratios. We can write 48 to 64. That's one way. The next part that we can do is 48 colon 64. And the most important way that we need to do is the ratio, which is the fraction line. And then we have 48 over 64. Now, with this right here, I need you guys to write this kind of small because we're going to do a division house. 48 and 64 are what times tables? They're going to be in the 8 times table. So I'm going to divide both top and bottom by 8. Because of that, 48 divided by 8 is going to get me 6. And 64 gets me 8. Again, you'll be writing this stuff right here into your workspace. I know the 6 and 8 are also in the 2 times tables. So I'm going to divide both of them by 2. And because of that, I'm going to get 6 divided by 2 is 3. And 8 divided by 2 is 4. Please write this small. So the final answer is 3 deer to every 4 monkeys. Our last part of cubes is this, our evaluate. So we'll just write this quick sentence down. So I'm going to write down evaluate. And I'll write down the math. We have the ratio is for every 3 deer, you need 4 monkeys. Again, try to write this kind of small because there's not enough room. And because of this, now you know how much work we're going to do. Make sure for problems 2, 3, and 4, you have enough room to write down the ratios and write down the last sentence. I'm going to have the sub or yourself pause the video right here. All right, let's go on to the next problem, which is the second problem, number 2. It begins with the word Gabriel. Gabriel scored 58 in math and 84 in science. So that's pretty easy to do cube on. I'm just going to get a score of 56. And I know the other score is 84. It's one thing that you guys might notice for our labels, we're doing math and science, which will act as key math words, and the word ratio. So here we go. We're going to do this as 2 ratios. The first one is easy. It's 56 to 84. The next one I can write down as 56 colon 84. Now, here's the part that we need really importantly. Oh, and I almost forgot. We need to underline the sentence right here. Find the ratio. So the next part that we're going to have is this right here. We're going to have our fraction line. And what goes on top is the 56. And goes on bottom is the 84. This one's going to be a little bit interesting because it looks like they're both even numbers and we'll have to do some dividing. Alright, so if you can write this small please. Here we go. 56 and 84. I know that they're going to be both divisible by 4. The reason that I'm going to use 4 is because, check this out. My clues are this. I know 8 and 4 are in the 4 times tables, so that's cool. And now with 56, I have a feeling that that's divisible by 4. So I feel that 6 and 4 are in the same times tables. So that's what I'm going to do. Right now, this is going to equal, on the bottom, 4 goes into 84. Let's see, 4 goes into 8 2 times, and 4 goes into 4 1 time. So there's a 21. Next part's kind of trickier. 4 divide by 56. I'm going to actually have to do a division house right here. And I just do a really tiny one. 4 goes into 5 1 time. And let's see, that gets me 4. 5 minus 4 is 1, and I bring down to 6. 4 goes into 16 4 times. So what's going to go on top is a 14. Now, I know 14 and 21 for sure are in the 7 times tables. And because of that, 14 divided by 7 is 2, and 21 divided by 7 is 3. So the answer is 2 over 3. Now, here's what we're going to write for evaluate. The way that we read this on top, the top scores are the math scores, and the bottom scores are his science scores. So for my evaluate, I can write this down. Evaluate. For every 2 math scores he gets, how many science scores does he get? He gets 3 science scores. And I'll move this right here. And again, I'm going to have the sub pause it right here so you can get all that down. Alright, so here's the deal. I went over 1 and 2. I need you guys to do number 3 and 4. I'm going to give you guys a head start. And I'm going to have the sub pause the video right here. After you are done with number 3, give the sub a thumbs up. You guys will only have about 2 minutes to finish number 3. So here we go. Hey, welcome back. You guys gave the sub thumbs up, and here's the next part to number 3. Let's check our answers. So for number 3, you guys were talking about a fruit seller, and he's selling 75 mangoes, 125 apples. We need the ratio of mangoes to apples. Now, the first couple parts are going to be easy. I'm pretty sure everyone's going to have 75 to 125. And then the next part is going to be 75 colon 125. Now, here's the part that might be kind of tricky for everyone. It's going to be the ratios. So it's going to be 75 on top 125. Now, the reason that this might be trickier is because a lot of people probably don't know that high of a times table. Whenever I see 75, I think of quarters. How much are quarters? They're going to be 25 cents. So I'm going to divide this top guy by 25. And it helps me clue in, too, to use 25 because I see 125 here. And that just reminds me of $1.25. So I'll also divide this by 25 right here. How many quarters do I need for 75 cents? It's going to get me 3. And how many quarters do I need for $1.25? Well, that's going to be 5. So what we're going to have is this. For evaluate, our evaluate is going to look like this. Our evaluate is going to be for every free mango we sell 5 apples to the vendor. So again, make sure that you write this down. I'm pretty confident that most of you guys will have this left part right here, maybe this right part. I doubt that you have this blue ink. So please make sure, even if you're done or ahead, save some room so you have the evaluate part right here. All right, one last part, and that's going to be number 4. Number 4 is this. It says the Hamilton School maintains a library with 81 English books and 90 math books. Find the ratio of numbers of English books to the numbers of math books. So right off the bat, I'm going to highlight 81 English books and 90 math books. You'll see that there's a keyword ratio that will box in, and we underline the last sentence, which is the question or instructions. So let's set this up. This one isn't going to be too bad. I'm going to have 81 to 90, 81 colon 90. And now this last part's not too bad. It's going to be 81 on top, 90 on bottom. This is a really big clue for me. 90 is an easy number. Any number that ends with 0 is easy to divide. And I know 90 can be divided by 9. And when I'm going to do the bottom, I got to do to the top. So what I'm going to get, 81 divided by 9, it's going to get me 9. And 90 divided by 9 is going to get me 10. So what I'm going to have is 9 to 10. Our evaluate sentence is going to look like this. Our evaluate is going to be our ratio to this for every 9 English books. There are 10 math books. Alright, so this finishes up the first part. If you guys notice on the back part of this worksheet, there's fractions. I'm going to do 2 problems, and then you guys will do my technique on the rest of the problems. So turn to the back where there's these fractions. Here we go. Alright, so listen up. Right above, below your name, there's a white space. Please write down example 1. And then on the other right-hand side, this is in between the part where it says add or subtract fractions, write down example 2. So again, where you're going to write this is on the top, and in the middle, there says something about add and subtract fractions. Again, make sure you write down in between that box example 1 and example 2. So here's going to be example 1. Example 1, we're going to use this number, and it's going to be 5 on the bottom. And what I'm going to have is this. I'm going to have on top 25 and 3. Because the downstairs, which are denominators, they match, I can show my work like this. I'm going to rewrite the 5. And now on top, I have a really long line of 25 plus 3. And that's going to equal 28 over 5. When we get an improper fraction, I need you guys to do mental division. 5 goes into 28 5 times. I rewrite the 5. So 5 times 5 is 25. How more do I need to put on to get to 28? Well, I need to put on 3. So the answer is 5 3/5. If you guys notice, I want you to write down your work like this. Your problem will be right here. Show this step, and then write down your answer in the box. Next to the box, write down the mixed number. Here's your last example. Your last example is going to look like this. It's going to be, I'm going to put 6 right here, subtract 6, and on top, I'm going to have the numbers 14 and 9. So because they share the same numbers in the denominator, that's called the common denominator, I rewrite the 6. Next up, I have 14 minus 9. 14 minus 9 is going to get me 5. I rewrite the denominator, so my answer is 5 over 6. This ends the video. And right now, you should probably hoping about 10 minutes left in class. Please use this last 10 minutes to finish up the worksheet. If you're done with the worksheet, please activate your laptops and be on the following 2 websites. You can be on code.org or mangahigh.com. Again, please don't disrespect the sub. The sub cannot finish this video and you are disrespecting him. He has permission, or she has permission, to write down your name. And you'll spend the rest of this week in lunch detention.